Hello and welcome back to Witch on the Holy Night. My name is Maybe Dennis, and last time we didn't really actually do much. We just continued getting some more exposition from both Alice and Aoko, and Sojiro was like this close, this inches close, inches away from death so many times. Alice, as she left the room, showed that she could have broken that bottle that he was in like any second. And then afterwards, he kind of agreed to, staying at the place and questioned about his part-time job. And he actually has a little bit more freedom than we'd expect. And after he comes back, he notices like this weird fog that he ended up not observing too much because the little blue bird told him, probably should stay away. And we only found out that that was actually one of Alice's familiars. It's like a mirror thing then, and that could have just straight up killed him too. So he's inches away from death at any given minute. But we're going to continue to the next part. It's called Are You For Real? I remember checking last time that there is nothing more or no additional things in the archive, so we'll just hop right into the next chapter. Oh, I thought there'd be more of a title thing. Once, long ago, I saw a beautiful bird fly overhead. Round and round, it circled the distant blue sky. How high it flew in this era when humans, not birds, reigned supreme. And yet the bird was completely uninterested in humanity's endless desire for expansion, our creation of even higher homes, or the smoke bellowing from industry's chimneys. The sky extends further than the eye can see. It belonged to no one, not now, not then. The bird was truly a noble creature, flapping its wings powerfully across the wild ancient sky. Oh no! Until the sudden sound of cold iron. Why? Well, why would you? It's the cat all over again. No. A wing is shot, its symmetry gone forever. Cruel and tragic, its body plummets downwards. Is this gonna be Robin? Not knowing its fate, the bird frantically beat its wings till the very end. One moment soaring with eyes to the sky, and the next crashing down to the dry, hardened earth. This was a dream I saw. No matter how much I thought about it, its details remained clouded. What did that bird look like, for instance? Oh, we're finally back at school. Are you for real? Oh, there we go. There's the chapter title drop. Oh, wow. I forgot about the teacher. I don't actually remember his name. You haven't seen him in so long.
試験範囲の総まとめなんかやっちゃいましたけど、これうちのクラスだけですから、よそのクラスには内密にお願いしますね。
Sojiro's so boned. He hasn't studied for a while. He's been out cold for 2 days.
ほら、原告の平均点ぐらいは学年一番にしておくと、皆さんも鼻が高いと思いまして。
Yeah, that's what. Mr. Yamashiro chuckled as he finished. This was typical of the kind teacher responsible for Year 2 Class C, the master at relaxing his pupils.
先生、口元に本音出てる。鼻を高くしたいのは私たちじゃないですよね。
Damn, you kids caught on. I don't like kids who catch on too quickly.
鼻っていうかメンツですよね。先生、里中先生に嫌味言われてばっかりだし。
つうかはっきり言えばいいんすよ。お前ら頭悪すぎだって。いやまあうちのクラス見事なまでに体育会系ばっかりだけどさ。
Yeah, go sports.
いえいえ、テストの点数だけが学生生活ではありませんから、僕から言うべきことは何も。先生方もそこまで目くじら立ててるわけじゃないので、別にクラス全員が赤点でも僕の人生には何ら関わりはないんですけどね。
You guys can all fail for all I care. The scum of society, but I'll still get paid.
しかし一方では一人厄介な御仁がおりまして、皆さんが選んだ全校生徒代表の方なんですが、これが恐ろしいのなんの。
Oh man, I just imagine she just walks through the door. It's like, I have something to talk to you about.
テストの点数が低いのは生徒ではなく教育する側が無能だからです。教育委員会への報告準備はいつでもできていますのでと日夜脅してくるんですよ。それでも生徒たちが治らないようならその時は直接私が監督しますとか、生徒としてどうなんですかね、あれ。
The warm atmosphere in the room suddenly fell below freezing. The students of Class C now knew who their true enemy was.
ああ、そっか。山城先生生徒会の顧問だったっけ。ナムナム。
Numma numma.
さすがは応援団を立ち直らせた女傑。教師一人退職に追い込むなど造作もね。
No, no, his paycheck will be gone.
やっぱりな。会長絶対年サバ読んでるって。あの迫力、同年代と思えねえし。
Right? It's almost like it's magic. I mean,
ほら、うちの女子と比べると特にこうおっぱい的に。
okay.
先生、木の実だけでも A 組に引き取ってもらえませんか？そりゃ男子はみんな猿ですけど、こいつだけレベルの違う猿ですよ、絶対。
Yeah, kick him out.
あれ、でも女子 A 組だけどあんまり成績良くねえよな。中の上ぐらいじゃなかったっけ？
そうだけど別にいいんじゃない。塾も行ってないし生徒会仕切ってたまにバイトまでしてるんだから。あれで学年トップだったら逆に気持ち悪すぎ
だよな。首位は副会長に任せとけばいいんだよ。
まあまあ皆さん、噂話はそのあたりで。地獄耳という言葉もありますから。じゃあそれなりに復習をよろしく。あんまり点数が悪いと冬休みそのものがなくなりますからね。
Please do well. I don't want to teach you guys.
あ、それとしずきくん、ちょっといいですか？
Mr. Yamashiro gathered his things and beckoned for Sojiro to join him in the hallway. There were no other students to be seen despite it being break time between classes. Voices were audible in the distance, but the hall itself felt strangely quiet and calm. Perhaps it was due to the sense of confinement created by the lack of windows. Usually, students spent their breaks either in their classrooms or on the veranda.
何ですか、山城先生。
いえ、そう大した用事じゃないんですけどね。試験前にこんな話をするのもデリカシーがないんですが、気になったので。
Though this level of concern from a teacher startled him, Sojiro felt reassured. It was only natural. After having had to deal with such difficult personalities lately, Mr. Yamashiro's trivial questions were refreshing.
はい。
Refreshing, whoops.
作りや決まりなら自分なりに分かってきました。友達も増えましたし。
Yes, best boy Tobumaru who's going to die soon because he knows the truth.
そっか、それはよかった。うちのクラスは口の悪い面々だけど、その分気を使わなくていいからね。しずきくんと相性が良くて助かったよ。
Sojiro's eyes shone brightly in appreciation. In Aoko's words, Mr. Yamashiro was a brutish, forgettable, downright detestable man who did not even deserve the title of a teacher, but Sojiro found him considerate in his own way.
アルバイトもほどほどにね。試験前だって言えば、大抵のところは休ませてくれるから、あまり無理はしないように。また試験で困ったことがあったら周りに相談しなさい。一人で悩んでいても時間の無駄だよ。ほら、学校っていうのは話し相手にだけは困らないから。
Man, I've said this so many times, but they keep having like long sentences with like breaks in between, but sometimes it's hard to tell when they're done. So I skipped like 4 or 5 times already this episode. With a wave of his hand, Mr. Yamashiro is gone. The pure-hearted Sojiro gave him a solemn nod, as if to say he accepted the advice of his so-called forgettable teacher, and went back into his classroom. And then... Whoa!
女のことで相談だ。
Sojiro had not wasted a moment in putting Mr. Yamashiro's advice into practice.
そうらしい。難問にぶち当たっているんだ。
Oh, gonna be more misunderstandings. No, the last time he did this, he got slogged in the face.
深く考えてみて気づいたんだが、どうも自分は発想が貧困らしい。
Sojiro averted his eyes out of shame over his lack of insight.
いや、豊かだと思ってたことがびっくりなんだけど。まあいい、こっち来い。
You came to the right guy. Follow me. Shocked as he was, Kinomi grabbed Sojiro by the shoulder and pulled him over to the wall. Kinomi had nearly burst out laughing when Sojiro, with a straight face, had admitted his difficulty with girls, but he realized it was the first time Sojiro had ever turned to him for advice. Sojiro was always able to break down any tasks at his part-time jobs into bite-sized pieces, but he was clearly struggling with a different problem right now. This was going to take some serious effort.
で、なんかやっちまったのか？よ。
So she tried to kill me, and I don't mean figuratively.
これからやるのかもしれない。木の実、例えばの話、マッドベアにハリセンボンみたいな女の子が入ってきたとする。その子は俺が嫌いで、マッドベアから出て行ってほしいようなんだけど、俺はマッドベアを辞めるわけにはいかない。
Sojiro explained that he couldn't just quit his part-time job at the restaurant. He needed the money. Kinomi grunted a few times to indicate that he was still following Sojiro's story.
つまりその女を追い出したい。
逆だ。なんとか認めてもらいたい。隠していたけど、俺はその女の子が嫌いというわけじゃなくて。
Sojiro furrowed his brow. Kinomi could not help but laugh at his friend's lack of manly resolve in his answer. Girls were the one area where Housuke's skills and experience were triple those of Sojiro's. I don't know if it's good experience though. You might be getting negative EXP.
なんだよ。要はナンパかよ。むしろ仲良くなりたいってわけ？
Oh no. This is gonna get him killed. He's gonna use it on Alice and then she's gonna be like, yep, killing you both. Sojiro wasn't sure how to respond. He nodded slowly without really understanding the implication of what Kinomi had said.
けど、どうすればいいのかわからない。そもそもどうやって同い年の女の子と仲良く話ができるんだ。
クラスの女どもとは話してんじゃん。あれでいいんだっつの。俺は羨ましいっつの。持ち前の天然系で押してけばいいべ。
Hopefully.
山育ちってのは希少なアイデンティティだと思うぜ。珍しいものは生かさないとさ。
You know, that's kind of true because like if he wasn't the person he was, Alice would have killed him already like 5 times over. It's just that every time he had an answer for one of her questions, he hit the nail on the spot. He got it right because of who he is.
そうかな。珍しいというのはあんまりいいことじゃない気がする。だいたいそもそも嫌われている場合はどうすればいいんだ？クラスのみんなは親切だけど、相手はハリセンボンだ。いや、この際ハリネズミでもいい。
Thorny beast. Oh no.
そういう場合はめげなきゃいいんだよ。相手が折れるのを待つって寸法だな。トゲだけに。
You know, I'm dealing with a thorny beast and a lion. Actually, no, it's a mountain. Sojiro's brow sunk deeper still.
この例え話はダメだ。
He needed more concrete material to work with.
ばっか。女なんてのは機嫌を取ってればいいんだよ。まずは女の趣味とか大事にしてるもんとか聞いて、そこをフォローすればいい。自分の都合より相手の都合だ。まずは外堀から攻めろってことだな。
外堀？外回りか。
もち。その後はまあ結局はこれが一番効果的なんだけどな。袖の下ってやつ？プレゼントで釣れ。
But I don't have any money.
その時の需要と供給さえ合えば、嫌われてても受け取ってもらえる。受け取らせちまえば、あとはそれが義理になるってもんだ。
You gotta manipulate them, I see. Kinomi then proclaimed with an odd sense of pride that this approach had resulted in only failure for him.
けど問題がある木の実。確かにご飯とかそういうのをおごってもらうと嬉しい。けど
そんな金はないってんだろ。わかってるわかってる。
But you don't have to pay for rent anymore.
仕方ないね。そういうしずきくんのために一丁割のいいバイトを紹介してやろうじゃねえのよ。
Oh man, Housuke is gonna be the death of him. They slid from the side of the classroom deeper to one corner, to in front of the lockers where no one had ever stayed for long. Oh, wait, that's a... Oh, why? It would be days before Sojiro realized that the suggestion he was receiving was of the illegitimate kind, the kind he should not have shared with anyone. Uh-oh. I need you to murk someone. That night, dinner at the mansion was a feast of bread. It was all the bread men that Aoko killed at the amusement park. Soft slices laid stacked in the center of the table, surrounded by variously colored jams. In a bowl was salad, mainly lettuce, with a small plate of unevenly cut ham. Sojiro may have had no frame of reference for what an average family dinner should be, but he could tell that this was most certainly not normal. In truth, it was a first-rate case of laziness.
チョコのペースト切れたままじゃん。アリス、新しいの買っておいてって言わなかった？
I love her face. I can't get over this.
今日は一日部屋にこもっていたから。
Oh, okay. I remember they said that they took turns, for lack of better words, cooking, but it seemed like all the meals we've seen them have so far were relatively lazy. So here you have bread and like jam. The other time we saw them do like a nabe or a hot pot or some sort, where you just kind of boil it and then like just throw stuff in. Huh.
第一、チョコレートを食べるのはあなただけよ。自分のものは自分で調達をするべきね。
And that's where Sojiro found his role. He could be the chef for this house. For these two girls, however, this dinner seemed to be completely normal. They had a system of regularly taking turns being in charge of meals, and tonight was Alice's turn. Normally, she would spend as little time and effort as possible, only truly applying herself when there was something to celebrate. Of course, Sojiro was none the wiser to Alice's unique approach to food preparation. For him, it was a plain, lackluster meal. And when it came to dinner... Not saying anything to each other was another staple of their meals. The sound of cutlery and the scraping of chairs and the tick-tock of the clock were the only things to be heard in the sunroom. Sojiro himself had already eaten. At this point, he was watching the going-ons from the drawing room.
Sojiro, 9時からアルバイトでしょ？行ってらっしゃい。私たちのことは気にしないでいいから。
Alright, fairly normal so far, except for the meal.
ああ、じゃあ行ってくる。
I love how you're just like, I'm broke and I'm still eating better than you. Sojiro donned his coat with a goodbye nod. When Sojiro glanced again at the sunroom, he momentarily locked eyes with Alice, or so he imagined. She had been ignoring him all day. And not just refusing to talk to him, she had avoided him so much as to not look at him all day until this very moment. He could understand if he was being annoying to her as an outsider in the mansion, but he felt no animosity in her gaze just now.
今の様子を見てたのかな?
Sojiro looked nervously at his surroundings for a moment before heading to the foyer. Alice only let her gaze return to normal when she was completely sure he was gone. Oh man. So much drama. Aoko was appalled by Alice's brazen display. So much so that her immaculate veneer of apathy crumbled.
何？献立に不満でもあるの？青子。もちろんあるけど、いつものことだし慣れてるわよ。私が呆れてるのはあんたの意地の悪さの方。徹底的に無視してるくせに
相手の反応を伺ってるなんてめめしくない？罠張って待ち受けるようなもんじゃない。
彼の反応なんて探ってないわ。そもそも興味がないもの。それと今のは差別発言ね。
Yeah.
しいという表現は女性軽視に過ぎるわ。
You can't say that. It's 2023, although in this case it's probably 2023. Like 30 years later.
今の場合なら、あなたは矛盾していると言ってちょうだい。
うわ、自覚ありときた。
Choosing not to rise to her roommate's job, Alice resumed eating. Alko tore off pieces of bread and then ate them one by one, anger still visible on her face.
じゃあここからは青崎青子としてじゃなく共犯者としての質問ね。
From someone who knows a thing or two about messing with that boy.
アリス的に彼を見逃していいと思える判断材料はない？ありえないけど、実は彼も魔術師でしたなんてオチであったとしても、ここに住まわせるのは容認できない？
その理由なら認めるわ。彼を許すのではなく、そんなことに気づかなかった私たちへのペナルティとして。
For recognizing his ability. What ability?
そうね。今のは絶対にありえない話だけど、それと同じに絶対の結論もまたないわ。彼がここに住む選択を飲む場合すらあるかもしれない。気の迷いは私にだってあるのだし。
That is true.
ええ、そういうことよ。今は私との義理とかプライドで冷静を保ってるあんただけど、あいつの努力次第で少しは。
Oh, maybe.
それは諦めて。彼が何をしようと無駄だから。あなたも知っていると思うけど。
Alice had never been the type to let her guard down around others. The young witch despised humans, having recreated so many of their objects in fairy tales. She's like, eh.
そんなのはあんた個人のトラウマでしょ？自分の意固地さを魔女の血統云々で棚上げするのはそれこそめめしいわ。
Oh, she said sissy again.
いいじゃない。嫌いなら嫌いではっきりしてれば。私が気に食わないのはね、あんたのどっちつかずの態度よ、アリス。
どっちつかずの態度？
そう。無視するなら徹底して無視してやれって言ってるの。ガチガチに守りを固めて、そのくせ城門だけ開けて、獲物が油断して入ってきたら串刺しにする気満々とか、相棒として見てられないわ。あいつにできることなんて閉ざされた門を開けることぐらいだっていうのに、その機会さえなくすのはどうなの？
You're right, it's time to lock the door.
ごめんなさい、青子。もう少し簡単に言って。
You end like that, you've lost me.
その例えはちょっと。
In plain Japanese. Alice seemed unable to grasp Aoko's metaphor. Meanwhile, Aoko had it up to here with her roommate's lack of self-awareness and was starting to lose her cool.
だから興味ないとか言っておきながら粉かけるなってこと。あんなにチラチラ盗み見たらあいつ変に勘違いしちゃうかもしれないでしょ。アリスはああ見えて本当は自分と仲直りしたがっているに違いない。じゃあ早速部屋に押しかけてみようとか。
そういうことに。
Oh, wow. That's a slightly different expression. Oh.
なる。少なくとも私だったらいい加減イライラして、話があるなら校舎裏まで来いって決着つけかねないレベル。この毒。
Bitch.
そうだったのね。気をつけるわ。別に彼と話をする気はないんだし、私も彼を見ていたというより、彼の手足を
I wasn't looking at him, I was just looking at his arms and legs.
手足ってなんで？
手足は手足よ。彼個人には思うところはないけど。
What happened the other night?
まだ記憶に新しいから。
Wait, what?
それが少しだけ気になって、つい視線で追っていたのね。
あの夜って遊園地のこと？なんかしたっけあいつ。
Oh, was it the thing with Jumpty Dumpty? Alright, no, sorry, no, Jumpty. Wrong game. Oh, with Scratchy Dumpty. Alice's expression soured. She still felt the sting of her defeat.
飛んだでしょ、彼。
No, Alco was KO'd. She was lying on the ground, just thinking, prepared to die.
レールの上から私のダンプティに向かって。
そんなこと言ってたわね。勢いでつい1メートルぐらいだから飛んじゃったとか。
Alco had not actually seen it in person, luckily. All she knew was that the spell she had placed on Sojiro was part of the reason he survived the jump of death. Alice, on the other hand, had observed the whole scene from the clock tower. It had only lasted an instant, but it had burned itself into her mind's eye. More than when her precious moon had fallen at Aoko's hands, and Flat Snark had come tumbling down.
でも、それがどうしたの？卵の敵討ちってわけ？
I don't think Dumpty's gone though, right? That was part of the process. I don't think it's like Flat Snark that, you know, got permanently erased.
ダンプティは壊れるのが仕事だから、敵討ちも何もないわ。
Oh, okay, no, that was part of the plan.
人間の体ってあんな風に動くんだなって。
As it goes, for someone with as little human interaction as Alice, Sojiro's leap must have appeared quite remarkable. Particularly because his legs were orders of magnitude less capable than those of an animal in the forest. And yet, even with such feeble legs, with those meek arms of his, he managed to fly through the open air like a bird. To her, it was akin to the feeling of city folk get when they see a wild creature in its natural habitat.
気にしないで。機会があるならもう一度見たいと思っただけ。
I don't think Sojiro wants to experience that again.
別に彼に何を期待しているわけじゃないわ。
なるほど。アリスのプロイって大体が人型じゃないしね。単に物珍しさで見ていただけか。
Alco sighed and released the tension from her shoulders. She was disappointed to discover that Alice's behavior stemmed from simple curiosity and like that of a child with a new toy. And Alice was in no position to take issue with her reaction. And how could she? She was not entirely sure what it was that she herself was feeling.
夕食、明日は私が作るから。試験前だってのに、こんなしょぼくれたもん食べさせられたら、一夜漬けする気合も湧かないわよ。
ご自由に。私も手が空いて助かるわ。
Night came and went in the mansion. For better or for worse, the disturbances caused by the foreign invader had not yet caused the kettle to boil over. Well, some more birds don't get shot down. It's misty. The next morning, at 6:30, as sunlight spread out across the sky, Sojiro walked to school with Aoko in the chilling morning air.
いい？洋館にいるときは、極力一人にならないこと。
It was her intention to keep Sojiro safe until he had left the mansion. Nonetheless,
眠い。6時から登校とか、あんたも働き者ね。
そうでもないよ。30分仕出しを手伝うだけだし。
his work ethic was a little too strong for a student entering finals.
それより青崎、無理してないか？別にこっちに付き合うことないんだぞ。
ご心配なく、生徒会室で仮眠取るから。約束だし、もうまでは一緒に行くわよ。
So responsible. But internally, Aoko was worried because everything suddenly got all purpley and very dark. What traps did her roommate have in store for him? She could not imagine Alice had planned anything to go down in the woods, but she wanted to be safer than sorry. The least she could do was accompany Sojiro to school. That much she was firmly committed to. Any traps that presented themselves could be dealt with on the spot. Is this the same forest that we saw Alice in the 7 Days of Spinning? Maybe. Didn't realize it was literally the forest that their house was around. Well, not dealt with so much as destroyed, since that was Aoko's forte. But that would be enough to keep him safe for the time being.
帰り道に関してはアリスもそこまで暇ではないと信じるしかないんだけど。
If Alice was willing to put all her energy into a new trap after the first had failed, then they were as good as dead anyways. But Aoko would cross that road when she came to it. It all depended on how deep Alice's dislike of Sojiro really went. It would have to be enough to make her abandon her pride as a witch, something she had protected fervently until now. If that were the case, Aoko knew she would never be able to keep him safe. The moment 24/7 protection became necessary was the moment she had failed. Her character led her to focus on what she could do in the here and now, and ignore the rest. And this current plan of hers was the best attempt at doing right by everyone. They left behind the Kuonji estate, and the two remained together until the residential area at the bottom of the hill, where Aoko glanced casually at Sojiro.
ところで、何か考えてる?
Surprisingly, Sojiro saw through her harmless question and sensed the bigger issue. How was he going to win Alice over? In fact, he had been thinking about that very question. According to his friend, oh no, there were 3 basic approaches he could take. One was the roundabout approach.
こいつは時間がかかるのが最も自然だ。
Oh no, he's gonna die.
人間ってのは自分が好きなものを大切にされるとコロッと気を許しちまう。仲間意識ってやつだな。
In other words, instead of focusing on the person one wished to win over, one should focus on their interests. It was a surprisingly mature opinion coming from Kinomi. Unfortunately, Sojiro had no idea what sort of things Alice liked. She seemed very fond of the mansion, but what could he do? Clean it for her? He sensed that it would have had the reverse effect. He had the distinct feeling that she would not want him touching what was precious to her. The second approach was to take the inner track.
でもやっぱり本人を落とすのが一番早い。俺たちに魅力がないのなら、魅力のある外付け装備に頼るのだ。そう、プレゼントなんだよ、しずきくん。
A quick and dirty strategy, the assassin's strike. Manipulate someone's feelings with an expensive gift. To Sojiro, this sounded like his best chance. The approach was easy for him to grasp, and he appreciated its simplicity. However, he had the same concerns as with the first approach. A step was missing, and without this step, the plan was bound to fail.
あとは、まあ、剣ってやつ？
Oh
俺には
no.
よくわかんないけどさ、やりすぎると悪い印象を持たれるとか殿下が言ってたな。私、今落とされてる？って意識させちゃダメなんだとよ。付き合った後で、あれ？私落とされた？と気づかせるのが上等なんだとか。
Though Sojiro did not quite grasp the details, he understood the basic idea. Don't press your luck. He knew that much was good advice. He would have to try extremely hard to get on Alice's good side. And he could tell that it would be a very long process to get there. Sojiro recalled the time he had wandered inside a fox's territory in the mountains. He had left some food on the ground for the fox, and then it never bothered him again. What is considered goodwill and kindness varies from person to person. But if there is enough goodwill from one side, regardless of whether that goodwill is reciprocated, the other side will eventually start to feel an obligation to do so. That was a key.
大丈夫。考えてるよ。とりあえず自分にできることとか、したいことをしようと思う。安心してくれ。青崎に忠告されたことすらきちんと守る方針だ。
He's gonna die. Sojiro seemed ready to face things head-on. His answer did little to reassure Aoko. However, she found herself more concerned about his safety than ever before.
学校にあるようなほうきが欲しい。
Oh, whoa, who's she?
そうなんだ。できれば安く買えるところ。
しずきの家、アパートよね。ほうきなんてもの必要とは思えないけど。
いや、
ちょっと気になるところがあって掃除がしたいんだ。ゴミ袋もあると助かる。
無駄な出費はできないって言ってたくせに。
Oh, very so. I want to use this to actually get some money.
まあどうでもいいけど、うちのでよければ使う？貸してあげましょうか？
多分1日じゃ終わらないから自分で買うよ。元から欲しかったものだし、あると便利だよ、ホキ。
I heard you can fly on them. Sojiro was on his way home from his part-time job after school. It was 4 in the afternoon, 2 hours earlier than his part-time job would have normally ended. The Mad Bear's head chef had gotten into trouble with the accountant for making a student work the day before exams. Thus, Sojiro's boss had tearfully sent him home early. And that is when it happened. The interruption of his standard schedule must have been just the shock he needed. Normally, he would meet up with Aoko after she was done with the student council affairs and go home with her. However, today Sojiro was asking the other students who worked at the same place if they knew any shops in the area where he could buy a broom. This is another student. I mean, we already knew it was another student from the uniform.
うちの近くにまっついラーメン屋あるでしょ？あそこの通りを終わりまで行けば、起きたって金物店がある。一式揃えるなら西口のホームセンターより安く上がるわ。どうでもいいけど、私のチャリ使う？どうせ試験明けまで使わないし。
Does he know how to ride a bike? Sojiro's eyes lit up as if he had met his savior, but biking uphill to the mansion, let alone with a package to carry, was not a pretty thought.
いや、自転車には乗ってみたいけど、今回は遠慮するよ。じゃあ、また明日、学校で。
So is that person a classmate? I'm gonna assume so, because he talked very naturally with her. Saying farewell to his co-workers, he headed to the hardware store. Oh, wait. Oh, no, it's his I guess it's his co-worker. Just like how Housuke was also his co-worker. He needed a cheap and sturdy broom. That's a broom. He needed a cheap and sturdy bamboo broom and a large dustpan to go with it. If possible, a pushcart and a stick for a splint would have been nice too. As it happened, Sojiro wanted quite a few things. Alice returned to her work after waking up from her nap. The Kuonji estate had an annex that housed the library. The library was filled with books handed down to her from her mother, so it was Alice's territory, such that even Aoko did not dare enter. If the mansion was a witch's abode, left behind by the times, the library was a fairy tale quarters, lost to the ages. It was a natural sanctuary for the young witch who could command ploys to do her bidding. She relied on her memory to recall the location of each book on the many shelves. And then she saw it. Upon raising her head, she was met with the most unusual of sights. Her elegant eyebrows bristled in distaste. For that moment on, she failed to accomplish anything she had planned for that day. Was it Sojiro? Instead, she was forced to stare at the strange sight outside her window. Eyebrows fixed in that position until the sun set. Oh, he's just cleaning outside. Why are you doing that? Ah, well. Moving into the grand mansion on the hill had not brought any major changes to Sojiro's day-to-day schedule. He woke up, went to his part-time job, ate breakfast, and went to school. Classes came and went, still strange and new, broken up by rare and brief moments of rest until the school day ended. He left school, went to his part-time job, slept, woke up, and studied for exams. A modest life for a modest young man, continuing every day in the same fashion, despite his best efforts to change his fortune. But nothing ever really changes. Whether Aoko was by his side in the mansion, as frequently the case, or whether Alice was making him drink some potion she prepared for going to bed. The former was an attempt by Aoko to make him feel better. The latter was some attempt to keep him safe, even if he did not fully appreciate it. Then, one day, like any other, while Sojiro was pouring himself some tea as he worried over the lack of change in his life, his relationship with Alice was the same as ever, but there was one major change this morning. He was drinking black tea instead of green. Though there are all sorts of different types of tea to be found in the kitchen, a newcomer to the world of tea, like Sojiro, could not tell one of them from the next. Naturally, his tea-making skills were limited to tea bags, one of which he placed his cup before returning to the table. Alice and Aoko were already seated. The two were eating in silence. In this household, it was everyone for themselves when it came to breakfast. The diplomatic description of their breakfast would be simple. The more accurate description would be 2 slices of stale bread prepared in seconds. Aoko exchanged a word or two with Alice, took a sip of tea, and stood up from her seat. Since it was winter break for the high schooler Alice, she returned to her room after eating as she normally did, while Aoko headed to the front door, shoes in hand, ready for school. After hurriedly clearing the table, Sojiro rushed out the door after Aoko. Together, they walked down the long hill in the direction of the school. They had spent 3 days following this very simple routine. You know who? School had ended, and evening had arrived. Buttered bread rolls in one hand, Alice replied with a simple, silent shake of her head. Oh, okay. It's about Majors. I thought she was like, any progress to Sojiro? Please tell me you don't want to kill him. Her response was exactly the same. Without showing the slightest sign of dejection, she continued to chew the roll and took a stab at her salad. Alice's face grew dour as if she had something to get off her chest. Alice was indeed on vacation and could spend all day every day on her work as a mage. Yet she had spent the past few days holed up in the library instead. She was hardly devoting herself to dealing with the challenger, as Aoko put it. Alice? Sighing, she stood up. What was bothering Alice, and what was it that she wanted to say? What had she been doing only 2 hours earlier? The young witch took her leave from the breakfast table without offering a single clue. Misaki High was a private school, and as such, its winter break started earlier than public schools. The end of term ceremony was in mid-December, followed by a brief respite before the next term began. Of course, that was if and only if they overcame their classic obstacle lying between them and an extended break from school: final exams. The radio continued its broadcast late into the night. A thermos of hot tea eliminated the need to venture down to the kitchen. An electric blanket kept away the winter cold, and a crab-shaped pastry staved off any dinnertime hunger. These were the lengths Aoko had gone to. She needed to ensure that every aspect of her surroundings helped her pull a successful all-nighter. Are you ready to be reborn? Sojiro nodded earnestly. Upon returning from work, he encountered not the mage he expected, but the Demon Student Council President Aozaki. Half a day earlier, the first day of exams were over, and Sojiro was about to head back to the mansion where he had hoped to put his plans into practice, when... Oh! A cold blue grin greeted him in the hallway. He's like, "Whoa!" clenching her fist with Sojiro's exam paper. Mr. Yamashiro had no doubt said,
ま、転校してきたばかりだし、しょうがないよね。
but she had snatched the exam out of the teacher's hands the minute he tried to show her. That was how Sojiro had ended up in Aoko's room, instead of the room in the attic to which he was accustomed. Wait, he got his exam graded that quickly? Though her situation was far from normal, at the end of the day, she was an adolescent girl like any other. Naturally, she felt uncomfortable letting a boy her own age into her room. However, his grades were truly something that called for desperate measures. That explained why her mood was even worse than normal today. The vein on her forehead was pulsing visibly with anger. Oh no. Whoa. The music changed suddenly. Aoko turned her back to him and sat at her favorite desk. Sojiro was left standing before a cheap-looking glass table. It's a guitar. Restless, Sojiro found his eyes drawn to the guitar propped up in the corner. Yes.
エレキはともかく、アコギは音楽室で似たようなのあったでしょ。あとこれ以上青々言ったら、そのとんがってるので殴るからね。
Yeah, keep talking, they'll find out. Sojiro plopped himself down onto a cushion, struggling to suppress the desire to retort that it was a weapon after all. Whoa.
ちょっとは落ち着きなさいよ。いつもは耳の遠い大型犬みたいに鈍感なくせに。何か気になるものでもあるの？
In fact, it was Aoko who was oblivious for once. For his part, Sojiro could not figure out why he was so restless either. Suffice to say, they were both pretty clueless in this moment.
あ、もしかして内装？この部屋の家具のグレードが今とは違うから不思議がってるのね。ここ、ベッド以外は私の家から持ち込んだものなの。引っ越してから2年経つけど、まだ屋敷には馴染んでないでしょ。
Though she misunderstood the real reason for Sojiro's nervousness, Aoko seemed satisfied that she had resolved Sojiro's anxiety for the time being and returned to her studies. She flipped through her notes and textbook as if fast-forwarding a tape. There was no opening for an outsider like him to intrude in her high-speed study session. Repelled by her intensity, he retreated to his table. He was at least sensitive enough to pick up on her desire to be left alone. It was a testament to Sojiro that having his need utterly ignored was now second nature to him. He's used to being neglected, to the extent that he could now happily go about his business in solitude. Two hours passed. Then, as the clock neared 11, Aoko's speed and concentration began to slip. Seeing his window of opportunity, Sojiro seized the moment to strike up a conversation. Oh no. She spoke hesitantly, not bothering to turn to face him. She continued to flip the pages of her textbook, albeit at a slower speed than before.
この3日間、青崎たちの夕食事情を見てきたけど、君たちの食事はいつもああなのか？
そうだけど、おかしい？
そう言われると困るな。ただ学校じゃみんな楽しそうだった。誰かと食事をとるってことはああいう風になることだって思ってた。だからもしかすると。
もしかしないわよ。別にあんたのせいでアリスと話さないわけじゃないわ。私たちはいつもああだから。
Just conflicting personalities. Aoko spoke calmly with her back still turned, seemingly unaware of what he was getting at.
張り詰めた食卓だな。青崎とアリスは仲がいいと思ってたのに。
They tried to kill each other. She neither confirmed nor denied his statement. She was, however, surprised by the disappointed tone in which he had made it.
ま、張り詰めた食卓っていうのは合ってるわね。アリスが何回あんたの飲み物にメスカリンを入れてたかなんてもう覚えてないし、昨日なんか堂々とサラダの中に7かまどなんか混ざってるし。
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what mescaline or Rowan is, so I'm gonna look it up. Oh dang, that's a drug. Mescaline is a psychedelic drug, which means it can affect all the senses, altering a person's thinking. I'm too lazy to look up what Rowan is, but I think it's a type of, like, berry, I think. A bitter smile spread across her face in reminiscence. The pages of her textbook continued to turn.
メスカリン
サボテンから取れるアルカロイドよ。
Oh.
アリスが使う以上、ただの幻覚剤じゃないでしょうけどね。と、私はこんなもんでいっか。
With that, she slammed her fourth textbook of the night. After having scarcely changed position the whole night, she finally turned her chair to face him. It's your turn now.
今度はあんたを仕込まなくちゃね。今日の4科目の答案。実に総十郎らしい出来栄えでそっとしそうになったわ。
How bad were they? Her tone was light, but her gaze was heavy as she stared at Sojuro, seated cross-legged on the floor.
原告、地理、数学、電子工学。あの調子であと2日続けたら、冬休みが消えるのは当然でしょうね。そうなると困るのは私なのよ、実際。
いや、俺も困るぞ。休みなのに学校に行くのはなんか気が乗らない。
Sojuro calmly corrected her.
そりゃあ私のセリフだ。あんたが学校に行くってことは必然こっちまでとばっちりが来るっての。
All she could think about, as much as she tried not to, was Mr. Yamashiro and his annoying grin.
それ以前に私の目が黒いうちはオール赤なんてやつは許さない。本来なら少年から叩き直すところだけど。
You know, he won't be a bad grade if he's not there to take it.
ま、あんたはいろいろ事情があるから、とりあえず点数だけで勘弁してあげる。私もテストは一夜漬けで片付ける方だから、あんた一人仕込むのにそう時間はかからないだろうし。
Sojuro's expression openly soured in response to her declaration. It was obvious he did not think he needed her meddling in his studies.
あんたね、苦労するのは私とあなた。どっちだと思う？
Sojuro got the feeling that it would be him, but he nodded slowly nonetheless. Then again, it would probably take more effort on her part than on his, and in any case, he knew that there was no way to talk her out of it.
この度はご迷惑をおかけします。
Sojuro summarily bowed his head to show gratitude and willingness to work.
よろしい。安心なさい。私だって鬼じゃないから。
She's even worse.
別に平均点狙うってわけでもなし。予定通りこなしていけば3時には眠れるわよ。
She nodded with satisfaction, pleased by his studious nature and attitude. He had plenty of obstacles ahead of him, but that sense of humility might be enough to see him through.
って何仏心出してるんだ私。いい？しずきくん。この後頼られちゃたまんないから釘刺しておくけど、私がマンツーマンで誰かを仕込むなんてことめったにないから。これはあくまで異例中の異例だって覚えておいてね。
She spoke more to convince herself than him, but his expression still darkened. It made one want to hang a sign around his neck that read, "Please take me home," like an abandoned pet. Aoko chided herself for being so soft. For some reason, in that moment, she recalled that it had been raining the day they met each other. Time passed like the falling grains of an hourglass. Oh god, it took the entire night. Finished. Aoko squinted as light poured through the window and she downed another cup of tea. She had lost count of exactly how many she had drank long ago.
一晩かかったね、青崎。
It only took the whole night, eh, Aozaki? Hey, hey? Sojuro picked up on what she left unspoken. Aoko had used up all her pep in staying up all night, but also in shouting at him. He looked pale and uncomfortable, just as he had all night long.
甘く見てたわ、あんたのことを。
I thought you were studious. I was wrong.
だから、褒めても何も出ないって。
You know I get weirded out when you compliment me.
ある意味褒めるに値するかもね。
She was at the end of her rope, but she could not help the bit of pride that swelled up in her. His lack of even the most basic comprehension was shocking, even taking into account his upbringing in the wilderness. His ability was that of a middle school student, and that was being generous. Preparing him for exams by teaching him new concepts and ideas was a waste of time. Rote memorization was his only hope for passing. Everything he memorized could collapse like a house of cards afterwards for all she cared, so long as he remembered it for his exams. Assuming he had the capacity to be a good student in the first place had been her mistake. It took all night to cover the contents just for 4 exams, and she still did not feel confident that he could apply what he had so earnestly tried to memorize.
でもね、真面目なのはいいことだけど、あんた暗記するのに時間かかりすぎ。
そこは多めに見てほしい。今まで頭より体で覚えることのが多かったんだ。
He's like, you want to see me jump on an egg again? Alko let out an exasperated sigh. Naturally, physical prowess mattered more in the mountain life than in the intellectual kind, but still.
まあいいわ。これで山城からあんたの成績について相談されることもないでしょうし。紅茶もう一杯入れてくれる？
Sojiro stood up and obeyed, as Alko stretched her aching back. She had apparently brought the tea bags in bulk, so there was still plenty to use.
まったく無駄遣いだな、青崎は。
He spoke under his breath so she wouldn't hear. It made him somehow happy to see her so tired and unfocused after the grueling all-night lesson she had given him. It did not cross his mind that the excess tea bags, far from being an indulgent purchase, were purchased intentionally to sustain them through the night. A relaxed expression came across Aoko's face as she watched him, naive and as peaceful as could be.
悪くないけど、せめてリーフティーで入れられるように仕込まなくちゃダメかな。
Seeming to have overheard her not-so-inner monologue, Sojiro made to face her.
やっぱり味は違うのか？
違う違う、もう全然。ま、正直私はどうでもいいんだけど、アリスはね、かなりお茶にはうるさいよ。
Oh, that's a hint. Tea.
そうだ、宗十郎、アリスとうまくいってる？
Alko cheerfully slumped over the table, now covered with textbooks and scribbled notes. Sojiro watched her with a hint of resentment in his eyes.
彼女と会えるのは食事の時だけで、食事と言ったらあれだろ？どうやって仲良くなれって言うんだ？
そう？私は十分脈ありだと思ったけど。そっちはアリスを怖がってないし、アリスはそっちを追い出す理由を見つけようと躍起になってるし。いい条件よ、これって。
全然わからないな。あの子とこっちの関係は遊園地前の青崎と俺の関係と同じじゃないか。一体どこがいい条件なんだ？
とりあえず反目し合ってはいないでしょ。一方通行の関係だけど、それはそれ。アリスにしちゃ上出来っていうか、理由を探している時点で可能性ありってね。
Okay, I'm so glad he didn't listen to Housuke.
あの子は反感に応えることが癖になっちゃってるから、大抵相手を自滅させちゃうのよ。
I wonder what would have happened if he talked to Tobimaru instead. Because Tobimaru thought he liked Aoko. And that, yeah. Her ominous words only confused Sojiro further.
知ってしまえば単純な話なんだけどね、あの子の場合。ただ、
Whether or not he could put it into practice was another story altogether.
難しいよ、青崎は。
He carried their teacups back to the tables as he spoke. Aoko picked hers up and took a sip as if to dispel her exhaustion.
でも、確かに君の言う通りだ。俺はまだあの子の顔しか知らない。クオンジ・アリスという名前すら定かじゃないのは問題があるね。
He followed Aoko's lead and took a sip of his own. His cups contained not tea, but plain hot water.
あの子のこと教えてほしい？
Aoko scrutinized him carefully as she sat. Most boys would have been captivated by her gaze in that moment.
いや、そういうことは本人に聞いてあげるべきだと思う。
But he ignored her and stared straight ahead as if speaking directly to Alice herself.
そうね。ほんと、あんたってアリス好みの対応をするわ。ねえ、前から気になってたけど、客室でアリスに何を言ったの？いくら私との約束とはいえ、あの子が部外者を半日も放置するなんてありえないのよ。
He thought back to the moment. He could recall only 2 or 3 words he had exchanged with Alice after awakening in the guest room. He did not recall the conversation being anything special, but he could not bring himself to casually share it with Aoko now. After all,
ねえ、どんなセリフであの子の気を変えたの？
it's about his neck stuff, the bandages. Maybe he has scars of some sort. I don't know, I want to know. Aoko eagerly pressed him for answers. Sojiro frowned, unsure of what to say. He did not know what the interaction had been like for Alice, but for him, it had felt special, sacred almost. The question was, why and for whom was he so concerned?
ほら、白状しなさいってば。隠し事なんて似合わないわよ。
I'm really not. Her disconcerting smile moved even closer. Sojiro did not look like he was able to stay silent much longer. As he would eventually come to realize, Aoko Aozaki had a sometimes troubling propensity to gossip.
まあ、あの子と何を話したかは言わないけど、今の青崎に比べれば、花もロマンもなかったのだけは確かかな。さっきまでは青崎が鬼みたいだったから、いいもんだなって気がつかなかった。
He stared directly into her eyes as he spoke. He's about to get slugged. Aoko nearly leapt out of her seat in panic. I like this face. She's like, ah! Now that he pointed it out, she realized their bodies were practically touching.
仕方ないでしょ。この方が効率良かったんだから。
I was just using the most effective way to break you, of course.
あんた、横にいないとすぐ間違えるし。
Aoko stood up as she lashed back at him.
そうだね。なんか昔みたいで久しぶりに集中できた。これが異例中の異例っていうのが本当に残念だ。
余裕あるじゃない。その分じゃ今日のテストだけじゃなく、アリスとの話し合いもうまくいきそうね、Sojiro。
Yeah, Sojiro, go ace the exam.
あ、それはもちろん。
Look at that smile. That's a man with a mission. His cool response caught her off guard, and for a moment, she was at a loss for words. She meant it sarcastically, and yet he responded with a warm smile.
方針変更だ。まずは近くで話しかけてみるよ。嫌なことはいずれ終わるって分かったから。
Aoko remained in a state of silent shock as he spoke and rose to his feet. She could not help but feel a reluctant respect for what seemed to be his newfound confidence and competence.
とりあえず今日は一人で帰ってアリスと話してみる。青崎は放課後生徒会だろ？
He was right. It was her last meeting before winter break. Normally, he would have waited until the meeting ended, or else gone straight to his part-time job. This was a part of Aoko's plan to make sure he and Alice were never alone in the mansion together.
待った。まさかあんた、一人でアリスとやり合うつもりなの？
別にやり合うつもりはないぞ。し合っても勝てないだろう、アリスには。
His reply made complete sense, which floored her.
でも、青崎がいたら話が複雑になるのは目に見えてるんだ。そんなわけで、今日はゆっくり飛び丸の相手でもしててくれ。
That's right, Aoko. You're in the way.
本気？
He felt like he was being tested, but nodded nonchalantly nonetheless. Knowing how grave the situation really was, Aoko was not sure how to respond to his apparent lack of concern. The morning light coming through the window marked a stark contrast between the two. Which stood bathed in light? Which lurked in the darkness? That went without saying. The silence lasted for only a brief moment. Staring at him gravely, she said,
そう。なら止めはしないわ。
That was all she had. Her dry tone hid the significance of their pregnant silence, not revealing the slightest sign of this discord.
なんか怒ってないか、大崎。
別に。それで何か考えはあるの？下手な考えは通じないわよ、あの子には。
Sojiro furrowed his brow in deep thought. He knew it would be hard to get close to her through talk alone. In fact, it felt nearly impossible. No, Housuke, get away. Kinomi, go away. Kinomi had been the voice of wisdom and folly for him countless times in the past. Incidentally, Kinomi had been referring to Aoko at the time he had shared that pearl of wisdom. But Sojiro had the distinct impression that trying to buy Aoko's kindness with gifts would not end well. Sojiro crossed his arms at a loss.
いつものことだけど、何も考えてなかったわけね。
でもまあ、あれこれ考えなくてもいいと思う。アリスにはあれこれ説明するとか、分かってもらおうとか、そういうんじゃなくて、なんていうか。
He pondered intently as he tried to put his vague thoughts into something concrete, but he did not spend that much time in thought. With a nod, he concluded.
要は、俺が彼女を好きかどうかってことじゃないか?
He articulated that which is often hard to say, with surprising clarity and calm. It was certainly a prerequisite for the task he had hoped to achieve. He had no hopes of making her appreciate him with words, or with acts of giving the expectation of reciprocation. He simply wished to get to know her better because he liked her. That was his honest, uncontrived intention, and it reflected the purity of his heart. But whether that was in his best interest or not was another story altogether. Calculation and compromise, selfishness and conflict. Purity such as his often irritated people who believed that morals went against human nature. Or rather, people who were inevitably forced to believe it. Aoko silently walked away without responding to what Sojiro had said. Her long hair swung from side to side as she passed him.
Ozaki?
Noting her strangely cold manner, he called out to her. However, she was already opening the door to leave.
下でシャワー浴びてくるから、あなたは自分の部屋に戻ってて。
Her words lacked any expressive inflection. In his confusion, all Sojiro could do was nod.
いいけど、やっぱり怒ってないか、青崎?
Emotion returned to her face as he spoke. Yet it was not the typical irritated look to which he had grown so accustomed to.
そうね。あんた流に言えば、多分私は怒ってる。何に対してのものかは、あんまり言いたくないけど。
Poor Sojiro did not even realize that he himself was the reason. She looked at him, and for an instant he witnessed an emotion on her face of which he had never seen the likes of before.
じゃあね。これが最後になるかもしれないから、お別れぐらいは言っておくわ。
Oh my god, she's like, these may be my final words to you because you may not exist tomorrow.
あなたはアリスを甘く見すぎてる。でも、それが同時にあんたの強みなのよね。私たちには毒にしかならないけれど。
The door slammed loudly shut behind her. Her steps were audible as she walked away on the other side of the wall. The corridor must have been nearly freezing without any central heating, but Aoko seemed perfectly comfortable.
ってなんで私から出ていくんだ。順番が逆。普通先に出てくのはそっちじゃない。
Get out of here! Aoko promptly kicked Sojiro out of her room. Once again, the wooden door closed with a slam. The corridor was not as cold as he expected. Not quite as bad as the freezer, at least. Okay, we're in the classroom. And it seems like the exams are over. And people are leaving. Okay, I think I'm gonna end it here for today. There was a lot of I don't really know what to say. There was a lot of just, what does Alice like? We have to find out more about Alice to complete this mission of getting her to not kill me, which is kind of funny. And also, like, the exams happened. One of the things that, like, was always in the back of my mind was that Sojiro transferred like 2 weeks, or I think it was like 2 weeks before the exams, which is kind of like, whoa, how are you, there's no way you're gonna pass. Especially with a middle school level intellect that he apparently has. But yeah, there wasn't too much substance, but there was some intrigue with what Alice is doing. She has to do something with another mage, like maybe fighting, maybe welcoming. I'm not exactly quite sure. I think they're trying to fight off another mage, but I guess we'll find out more details about that next time. And until then, I will be seeing you. See ya!